how many can they hold in the future?
You actually heard
How many
three,
can-
you heard three numbers.
Yep.
78, 98, 50.
Yeah, the real number is 78 and 99. And again, it comes back to what's the allowable, percentage of those cells that can be plumbed, or you can kind of speak on how you get to that, so.
So the 78 is the.
What they can do right now.
That's the opening pump. And then you can double up so many cells, whatever. Department of Corrections has a requirement of how many, you need, 15% of your total cell count needs to be single cell.
What percent?
50%.
Yeah.
Okay, then I asked the question about if we have a 214, you're in one place where there's up to 3, 4 beds, whatever, can you do that? And the amount of times I was told no. So how many separate units do they have that they could, you know?
Classifications?
No, how many,
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
4, 6, single, how many places do they have they can put one person by
I remember
themselves?
the 18 on that.
18? I'm gonna tell the guy that said this, all that wiring is gonna be done by the end of the month. I don't think it'd take it like that. All those blue wires. A lot of wire.
So, yeah, that's the common response, it comes together quickly. So kind of the process of, so you get a feel of the timing that's there, is that the move-in, there actually is a shakedown period or a training period for the staff. So that pod will get up and operational here in November, and then the staff have, 6 to 8 weeks to implement their new policy, work out the bugs, ensure all the intercoms, door controls, all those elements will function. Because as you know, those things don't always work as intended day one. So it's working the bugs out, and then obviously the DOC will come in towards the end of the year, do a final inspection, make sure that it's in compliance with all of the codes that are applicable, and then grant them occupancy, and then they'll make a decision as soon as they can.
I guess another thing that came to mind when I was going through that was the fact that I don't see how it's feasible if, if we did build a new jail and that, how it would be feasible for an individual to do both jobs, jailer and dispatch.
You mean, on that design that you're referencing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the model that Trumbull has right now is that they're split. The model that we're looking at your location is that we're actually putting, one officer station in a location so that it can double as that booking piece, or you can speak on that. So it is looking at it differently from a staffing perspective, but, that's the model that you're gonna wanna look at from you guys, day one operational, but then what it look like for the future.
But we're looking at not someone that's gonna do both jobs, then someone that will just do dispatching. Is that?
Eventually, that's the intent of the issue, is split that in the future.
Yeah.
But day one, we will have a design that they can do both jobs and meet the staffing requirements.
From the central area.
Correct.
Since I don't understand codes on a jail, do all the walls have to be 6-inch brick, or couldn't you get away with some 4-inch block, or?
Interior walls have to be 6-inch, solid, either masonry, whether it's solid or concrete. Exteriors actually have to be 8-inch.
Yeah, that I understand.
Was there a reason for not separating those two right away? The jailer and the dispatch?
Here,
Yes.
yeah.
Staff.
Staffing model, so if you split them, we're talking about staff, and our understanding of our approach here was that you're gonna focus on bricks and mortar first, with the opportunity that someday you could separate them, but day one, so that you didn't have to incur additional staff, would give it the opportunity to do so. With the DOC understanding that you would potentially in the future move that, but day one,
when we split it.
Then that would be maintained where you are right now.
Because the jail will be in a different spot.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions on the tour, or?
Did the tour help from an understanding of the flow of the process? That was our intent, is to have Joe kind of walk you through, you know, if you had a bad day and you ended up in the back of the squad, what is your trip like? Was that a clear understanding of the design, kind of the philosophy behind why things are laid out the way they're laid out, the adjacencies, things that were in there from a staff efficiency perspective?
It sounded good, that's why I said that plan would have been able, I could have been able to look at it and say, okay, that's, I can fill in the spaces, cause you're absorbing so much, and you can't look at the plan. And it makes sense, everything they talked about,
Good.
you know.
How many square feet is that?
Just
For
about,
their jail?
just about 120,000 square feet is the entire campus. Don't know what the jail.
But that's the justice center.
Correct.
That's the whole.
So, jail.
I'd have to get you that number, I don't know what that percentage is. Why did it seem too small to you?
They're pretty small right now, because she said they board a lot of the prisoners out
Yeah.
of town. And that's why this is gonna be much bigger. She can't wait to get that out.
Good. Absolutely.
Well, it's a beautiful facility. As far as jails go, I'm considering becoming a criminal.
You didn't see the food in the kitchen, did you? But you don't wanna stay here, I'm guessing.
No, I'm doing it for a while. Any other discussion on the tour itself? Now then we'll move on. So we would like to hear from Attorney Samuels on.
So last time we left,
Yep.
we had been given direction, to look at, a couple of options in regards to pricing. And what I've given you here is actually three options, so, you can slap my wrist later, but there's a reason behind, the three options. So, leaving here, direction from the committee was price out an option that is on the south block that you currently own, with a skywalk to connect to this campus. And the other option was, on what's called option 3, when we gave you those 6 or 7 options last time. Option 3 kept all of the building on this block, did not go outside of the footprint of this block. So the two options, those two options that you directed us to price were option 2 and option 3. Option 1 was the original discussion that we had about having the building connected to this building with closing of Minor Avenue, okay? The reason that I priced that is because I knew that the question would come back as to say, what's the difference and how much is the Skywalk costing us? And the only way to do that is to compare the two of them. So how we priced this was to take the south building program, meaning that we kept the square footage the same. We just split it to the south and had.
Option 3. For the south, or-
No,
option 1. And I knew I would confuse you with these, these numbers, so option 1 was the original concept that Venture had put, closing Minor. Option 2 is taking option 1 and sliding into the south and adding a skywalk. And option 3 is the one where we're taking on a portion of this existing building, building the building inside of the footprint of this current block. Now, some things to think about in regards to numbers, let's just kind of go through each one of them. So option number 1, again, because we are at somewhat of a very schematic portion, we've lumped some of these together in regards to site work, structure, obviously our finishes and equipment, our mechanical and electrical systems, and then we have a line item there that identifies the skywalk and an addition that's needed to be able to connect that skywalk to both of the buildings. The subtotals that you look at, it's gonna be, the second subtotal would be the construction cost for each one of them. So option number one is just over 35 million, option number two is 37.8, and option number three is just over 35.5. Then there are professional fees, your architectural fees, your construction management fees. The FF&E, that is fixtures, furnishings, and equipment. So you want a number that is entirely complete, meaning that the equipment that needs to be put into the building, any new furniture that would have to be put into the building in regards to detention furniture, office furniture, anything that's tied into that. This is an allowance for what we have seen historically for a project of this size. So FF&E is fixtures, furnishings, and equipment. We'll get the acronym out of there next time so that people understand what that is when we talk about the number. So the contingency line item, you see the subtotal that comes down after the professional fees for each one of them. The contingency is a placeholder or a budget line item that you will carry for the project after it is bid for unforeseen conditions. When we get something in the soil, when we find something that we uncover on this existing building, or some design components that need to be coordinated between disciplines, the contingency is to address those unknowns that come up during a construction project. We have categorized the percentage or the amount of contingency that we would propose for each one of these options. You'll see that option 1 and 2 are less than option 3. The reason for that is that we're doing less connecting or renovating in that option versus option number 3. So there's a higher risk of unknown in option number 3 than there is in option number 1 or 2, because it's essentially just a single connection. The other one is gonna have a much bigger connection. We're right up against the building. We're dealing with some underpinning issues. There's more unknowns on option number 3 than there is in option number 2. Get to your subtotal. Your subtotal is if we bid it in today's market right now, okay? We know you're not bidding it in today's market because it's not designed, so we have to do a forecast of potential inflation. That potential inflation that we've estimated for next year, meaning mid to late summer, right? That's what we anticipate that this inflation would be. We can arm wrestle about whether that number is accurate or not. I can tell you right now that over the last 3 years, we have undershot that number. So the number may look large to you now, it may not be enough, is my point, but we have to have something in there in regards to inflation.
What percentage is your inflation allowance?
I can't remember what he had, I think it was 7%, 7 or 8%, something like that. So, with that said, I know all of these options are a higher number than what you were anticipating. We just got done touring Trumbull County, we were in the jail portion there, and somebody asked how much this building costs. That entire building at Trumbull County was about $45 million. Now, here's what's happened in the construction market, specifically the correctional or detention piece, is we've seen significant jumps. The numbers that you see before you right now are based on projects that have just been bid within the last 3 or 4 months to be able to get to these numbers that you're seeing in these categories, right? We've got to go through and have our due diligence on what the markets look like, because everything jumped. The inflation piece jumped huge on these projects, right? So the square footage numbers that we're talking about here are not historical numbers. What they are is they're real time market numbers. So we can go back and look historically over the last 20, 30 years, and there's been kind of consistency. What happened over the last 3 years is it did this and on your side. So your number that you're seeing right now, you are not getting the same size building that Trumbull did 3 years ago for about the same amount of money. That's the market in which we're in. Now, what I don't want you to do is to have a panic attack about where the numbers are right now. The way that this process works is we just went through an exercise of identifying a program that connects with what your current needs are right now and your needs into the future. So we went through and historically looked at what your average daily population is. We identified what your needs are in regards to bed or cell numbers, the classification numbers that we talked about, to be able to get that so that you can manage that well in the future. Put a program together. That program was then married into a floor plan, and this is our first attempt at a floor plan in a budget, okay? Now, the process that happens as you move forward, everybody looks at this number and says, hey, that's higher than what we anticipated. Yes, it is, I understand that. The reality is that there's room for us to make adjustments on this design. It's obviously not final, but it also gives you an understanding or a realistic placeholder as to the program that supports your future needs. Here's what that cost is. And then we have to evaluate what cuts, if any, do we make, and what is the pain associated with that, right? So do we make a significant cut that it limits the ability for this building to perform for you for an extended period of time? And that's where we come back to a committee such as yours. We talk to the sheriff and their staff in regards to some of those elements that we can look at. And it's a matter of refining that design to get to that point. So I know the exercise that we went through was to really identify option 2 and 3, the difference between the two of them. A couple things that I wanna just remind you about is that take option 1 off the table, because you didn't ask me to price that, you just asked me to price option 2. Option 2 was the building across the street with a skywalk. Option 3 was taking down a portion of your existing building and building on this campus, okay? So in option 3, we have all the asbestos abatement tied in with that, that's needed, if any. We've got our demolition that's associated with taking that building down. We've got phasing in option 3, meaning that we've got some temporary wall construction, because as we start to break through some of those walls, there's more connection that's in there. We've got underpinning of potential foundation work that may need to be there, because we are building right next to the foundation that's there. Disruption of those services that are tied into that. There's elements in it that are in option 3 that are not in option 2. Option 3 does not give you the same bed count as option number 2. Because if you will recall, we had to shrink down the size of that housing area to fit it on the campus. And it was about 30 beds less than what option 2 is. So it's significantly impacting your long-range forecast of your ability to house inmates here at Rusk County for, the dollars associated with that.
What are the bids for option 2 and option 3 now?
Do you remember, AJ, what the bed counts are, Corey?
The bed counts for like option 2, opening day was 88. Kind of the same situation that we did at Trempealeau. Opening day, first floor was all single beds, upper floor was all doubles. There was 58 cells total. So it's 88, and then with the 50%, you could add on some additional 7 beds right now. So their maximum number right now is 95.
For option 2?
Correct.
And what about option 3? So it'd be what, 58?
Was that cells or?
Yes,
Cells. So
right, I'm sorry, that's beds,
beds.
30 beds.
So you're down to 58.
58.
And then plus double.
Plus.
So you're looking at 65.
So the other part about option 3 that's not included in a potential cost on that option is, what do we do with the staff that are currently held in that wing before we take it down, right? So, I know last time when I was here, you told me not to put the cart in front of the horse, and I won't. But I just wanna caution you that we have to have a solution for that is no money. If there is money associated with it, we would have to tie that into this somehow. And all I'm saying by that is, the first thing we would have to do in that phase is we would come in and we would take that building down, because that's where we're gonna build the building. And before we take the building down, we should move the people out of it, so.
One thing I don't see here, and I believe, memory serves, we asked for that, is a cost of an off-site building. Just somewhere else.
Correct, yeah, and the greenfield site, I can tell you right now in regards to the elements tied back into this, the same size in regards to the greenfield site. We just ended up pricing one that was very similar to this, and it was about $38 to $39 million. Now,
Is that a jail or justice
the
center?
deal. So, something to keep in mind as we move forward with this, because the process that we're going through right now is evaluating options. Then we want to pick an option, and as we pick that option, now we're gonna start to lay down, the operational side of it in regards to how do we function and how do we get these final details worked out. And it really comes back to that communications plan, it comes back to bringing in bond counsel, wrapping all this together to say, how do we make this work? Does it work for your county? Now, there's multiple facets of what's going on right now, so do we do something here out of these two options? Is there another option you want us to look at? Are there elements of this that you would like us to bring back with feedback? That's kind of where we're at today, so.
I have some questions. So, of the greenfield site, would the beds be 88,
Correct.
95? also be laid out in a manner that would facilitate, prisoners coming in like it was in Tremper, correct? Because
So,
garage-
the model that we just referenced, it was a jail, and again, we didn't lay that out specifically for a campus, because we don't know where you would put it, but it would be in a location, that it would just be the jail, it would still be the Sally Port, it would still be the pre-book and the booking area, and your housing unit, and your jail administration. The kitchen, laundry, all those elements that are there. All the rest of the piece of sheriff's office would stay down here, so we're just talking about jail, somewhere on a new site.
Keep in mind too, Tom, that would require more staff and vehicles
It would,
to transport inmates from jail to court, to interview rooms, back. We have to hire, I don't know how many staff, but multiple staff.
It'd be variable too, so. Do you have any idea how, are you talking about a skyway from this building now to across the street?
Yep.
Do you have any idea how much that costs alone?
So that's the line item that I had down here, it's just over 3 million. So what's entailed in that is obviously all the foundation infrastructure on each side. We gotta deal with underpinning potentially up against this building to be able to make that connection, so we don't have displacement of that shared loading on this side. Obviously all the infrastructure structurally, and we do have that detention grate. So in there, we do have price that there will be detention ceilings. Obviously, it'll be interlocked with all the detention grate doors that you saw down there, because it has to be an extension of the jail because of that whole element. So it's not cheap real estate. There's a lot of elements that are tied into that piece of the skywalk.
And a skywalk is allowed because Brad did say that
He did.
we could not have skyway or tunnel.
Yes, Brad also, when was asked here last time, is that, if we met the compliance with the detention elements, which we did, and that's why it's expensive real estate, that it would be a consideration. So, I believe that what we have priced here would be something that he does he prefer it? I think the answer to that would be no.
We're gonna give you our answers on the state's ideas.
So, I know you didn't give me direction to price option one, and I didn't price option one to cause controversy, but I priced option one because I think it's fair and proper to evaluate that option one does include the request and the pursuant to close Main Street. And I understand that that's not an attractive measure in multiple areas, but I think we also have to have a dollar amount for us to evaluate to say, because we're not closing the street, what's the price taken out of the street? And now we know what the price tag is, right? So now it's a determination as to the board as to, does it make sense for us to pursue that? Or do we just stay with the Skywalk solution and move forward?
One thing with the Skywalk, you wouldn't have to worry about transportation costs associated with that.
Correct.
Greenfield site.
You are correct. Exactly what Phil said is spot on. If you do a greenfield site right now, you are separating something that you currently have that's functional to have them adjacent to one another. Is that I'm gonna say you're taking a step backwards in regards to your efficiency between that component there. So there are things to consider there.
So if there was, would it be safe to assume that, like on a greenfield site, if you were to add a justice center, would it be back up to the same 46 in that area, or?
What would be more than that?
It would.
Way more.
I can tell you right now that if we took Trumbull's model, and I know you guys didn't go through the entire model, but let's say we put 2 hearing courtrooms and a court, hearing room in there, and obviously all the supporting court suites that were in there. If I took Trumbull's model right now, I put it on the street today, it would be $70 to $75 million. Exactly, not changing a thing, it's just the market has changed that much from 2020 to right now. So, the number you're talking about is significant, and there's,
Depends on what happens in the Middle East right now, too.
yeah, there's volatility.
Yeah, there's a lot of volatility, right?
So, how you manage that volatility as you pursue it, 'cause I think as soon as, I don't know that there will ever be a time where everything is gonna be, spelled out for us, but the steps that we're gonna take here is let's focus on one of these options, get to a point where we think what makes the most sense. That's the one we're gonna select and we're gonna move forward with finalizing some design elements, right? After we finalize those design elements, now we're gonna put together a communications plan that obviously presents this information to your taxpayers, right? And that's what we're doing. We now are gonna hone in on one of these, finalize the details, give you the virtual tour, so to speak, of what it looks like on the campus. You could choose to build something down here. And then we put it out, we'll get the letter out to the taxpayers, we'll have your public meetings, we'll have your website, pull in the financial piece so you know what it costs the taxpayers. I think that's always the missing piece of the puzzle, is we see a big number, right? And everybody knows that it's gonna cost something, but what does it cost the taxpayer per 100,000, right? And that's where we'll get to that.
So, what do you guys feel about, like, do you think that we need to go remediate that? I'm just curious. Do you think we need
I believe so.
Yeah.
Our main goal is to have this jail function properly and as it should for the county long after we're gone. We could build a brand new 52-bed jail, but it already isn't big enough. We could build a 70-bed jail, but is that jail gonna be too small in 20 years when that jail should last 40 or 50? You know, I mean, none of us are gonna be here on this earth when a new jail, none of us are gonna be here on this earth when the new jail needs to be rebuilt. But I think we would do a disservice to people that live in this county, taxpayers, including ourselves, if we didn't build a jail that we didn't think could service Rusk County's needs for at least 40 years.
And the 58, 65 beds,
That's not gonna do it. Now, do I think,
You got 52 now.
do I think we need 130? I don't. But, I just,
so you feel, I mean, you think that for the next 40 years, the 88 to 95, that should take care of our needs?
hopefully. Yeah. I just don't want in 20 years, board members and people from the public to think, how those idiots 20 years ago, what were they thinking? They spent all this money and we already need a bigger jail.
Yeah, just, I mean, cost wise, it's like you're out of the bucket. And it would, I mean, option 2 would allow business as usual essentially here, without being constructed.
Yeah.
So would one. So would one.
One and two are really the
One's not-
same
one's
with
not
the
an option.
highway and it
We're not gonna close the street. The city will not allow it.
We haven't even tried yet.
Is it worth $3 million to you to not reroute a parade? Is it worth $3 million to taxpayers to not reroute?
It's not my call,
I
actually.
know.
And, just from some of the things that I've heard, it's not gonna fly.
I think we should press the issue before we lay down, because $3 million is a lot of money.
Well, when you're looking at 46 million, I mean,
But you could take that 3 million for that skywalk, not build that skywalk, and put that 3 million back into the jail.
you know, I don't know, I get, if you wanna pursue it that way, I just don't see that that's gonna happen. Not with the current people in charge of the city.
I don't know if we really, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if we really pursued it that much. I think there's been, meeting? Mm-hmm.
They were not for it, from what I understand, at all.
Well, I'm not wondering whether we give up crazy.
Well,
Well, it was,
I don't know, I mean,
it was stated that people would be going knocking on doors, because you got your permission to close the program on either side, and there would be individuals that would go to every single
sort of thing that I've dealt with before is that the excitement of closing a street is never there, right? Whether there's a historical element there, there's a change to the neighborhood, right? It's never something that's open, received with open arms until people start to look at the options of what's there and the impact in regards to those things. So there's an approach that could be taken with the communication plan, right? So we're communicating to the community about what you're considering. In the communications plan, it could easily be said, we've identified the size of this building, we've identified the cost for this building, and we're wrestling with the fact that we're gonna have to spend $3 million more because we can't close the street. How is that to the neighbors? With a neighbor that you knock on their door, how do they feel about it when they say, do you wanna close the street? No, I don't wanna close the street. Is it okay not to close the street for $3 million? That message, those two are two different messages, right? So that's the information that is considered. Not saying that the board has to do that, but it could be a way for you to gain interaction with your community. That's what this communication plan is about, because you're not making any decisions yet. The only decision that you made right now is, we understand that we have a need to do something with the jail. We're gonna pursue our options, and now we're gonna let the taxpayers know, this is what's sitting on our lap. We gotta make a decision. We'd like you to communicate with us. We're gonna then put it out on a website. We can put factual information out there. We then have our public meetings, which we select where they're gonna be. We go to the townships, wherever you guys decide they're gonna be. We give a brief presentation. We let the community then speak to us. We then will report back to you, the board, as to what we've heard. You will no doubt get some interaction with your constituents about the ideas and thoughts that are there, and it will then give you that feedback and that interaction with your constituents on a topic that's a big issue for the county. So, I don't know that the decision on close it or not close it needs to happen today, but the decision will have to be of how are we sizing this and which way are we moving, right? So, we could move forward with the decision to do a skywalk, and in our presentation say, by the way, we're doing a skywalk because we don't know that closing Main Street is an option, and that becomes part of the plan, right? Or you could say, we're gonna pursue this. So what we were given direction from the city was, if you guys want to talk about the petition or the request of vacation of minor Ave, a letter would need to be written from the county or chair, give it to the city, and then we would follow up with meetings. Because we haven't done that. That's the direction that we got from that meeting. So it was just, the meeting that we had with them was not presenting any information. They didn't see any drawings, they didn't see anything because we didn't have anything, right? It was just, how do we pursue this? And that was the direction. So we do have some drawings now. We could give them some site information. We could have that part of the letter if you decided you wanted to do that. If it's the nature of the board that you don't wanna do that, and you just wanna pursue a skywalk, we can do that as well. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't think you need that answer today, because we've just dumped this on your lap, right? If we schedule a time, you're visited, if it's something that you wanna pursue further, think about it, or if you have strong feelings now, whatever you get.
Where did you shut down the street in Whitehall?
So you remember we walked out there and we were standing there at the end?
Yeah.
That was the street.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Where that
But
intersection.
that one went nowhere basically compared to this one.
Yeah, well, it really, it allowed them to quick trip, right?
They get there
The
anyhow.
most important place there, right? If you know how many times I heard about quick trip in that town, but yeah, you're right, it wasn't Main Street.
Didn't go to the high school, it didn't go to downtown,
But you can also get to the school
yeah.
7 or 8 other ways. I mean, we're talking about possibly shutting down a block, like not a whole street. We're not going from West 9th Street south to East
Yeah.
2nd Street north. It's a block. And I mean, is that worth $3 million to taxpayers?
Well, if you look at that $3 million over the life of the loan that it closes and the rates, I don't think they have that big of an impact over the long term. When you're looking at,
$3 million is not gonna.
I don't think it is there.
It's on the levy.
I mean, you're looking at a few $1 million spread over whatever on the levy for 20 years or whatever.
That reason, for $5.
I don't think it's that big of an impact.
Well, we-
$3 million is $3 million. That's a lot of money.
Well, I, we're looking
I'm
at
not arguing
46,
that.
so.
But then what are, I don't know, what are the incorporated costs on a Skywalk every single year for inspection?
Yeah, it's not something that's gonna be, you know, have an inspection, I mean, if you're 5 to 10 grand in annually, that's what you're gonna see inspections, you know what I mean? So, it's not that it's a huge piece, but it's still something that you have to deal with. The other thing that I can tell you is that, from a Skywalk's perspective, this Skywalk is going to be, how can I say it in architectural terms? It's not gonna be a real pretty element, because it's going to be secure. It's gonna be like a closed tube, to be able to get them there. So it's not like it's gonna be the Skywalks that you're envisioning in the city that have some real pretty glass and all those elements, you know. They may be able to come up with something on precast that gives it some flavor, but it's not gonna be the Skywalk that you're envisioning. So give some consideration of what that looks like. The part about the city that I personally would like to move it to the next step rather than just saying shut it down is Venture has come up with some creative ways to incorporate that into the city elements and functions and events. And I understand that there's history tied back to Main Street being what Main Street is. But I think it would be worthwhile to at least take the step to the city and say, would you consider this, and could this change some of your events where the parade ends here? And this is the new tradition that's beginning, right? So there's things like that I think are worthwhile pursuing, but, if you're not comfortable doing it, I understand that. I will do it either way, I'll pursue it either way that you would like to.
Well, this is the first time we had quote the price. And then the other thing is, I asked you last time about would it make sense to extend this building out to the edge of the sidewalk to shorten the skyway span?
We essentially did, so that's where you see that building there, we made a connection point of each one of them, because
Okay.
we don't wanna put, the added, displacement of pressure there, so there is some elements that are in there. Yeah.
The length of the Skyway walk, if proposed, would be relatively short.
But it's just getting across the street, we're not pushing the building any further south than we have to.
And
Correct.
the other thing is, going across the street is about as close as we can get to a greenfield site, without actually having a greenfield site. Because we already own that property.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah, correct, yep. Yeah. Other than we have a building there to deal with, right, when I say greenfield, I'm cutting the grass before I dig.
Well, I mean, so we're up against, essentially then, we have to present, sit down with the city again then. Talk to them about this.
If you would like, I don't wanna push you into something you're uncomfortable with, I'm just telling you, I will do either way you would like me to. If you'd like me to pursue that, and take some options to them for consideration, I will. If you decide that Skywalk is the way you wanna head, that's the way we'll head.
Well, I think at least we have a figure, we can say, if we can't do it, here's $3 million. Okay. I have a feeling which way to pick based on their history, but.
So I guess my question is if the street wasn't an issue between the city and the county, I guess I would say option one would be our first choice, and that's what we move forward. Cause it's the best option. So I guess I would ask that you give us the opportunity, these guys the opportunity, to at least attempt something with the city.
Oh, no, I
To see
agree.
if they're open
I
like
agree
that.
with that. I
I'm not saying that's the only way I wanna go. I think that's the best option. But if it doesn't happen, we have the Skywalk option. But I hate to just walk away, and not know whether or not that's a for sure thing. I can tell you at the meeting, there was a lot of negative towards it, and they let a lot of public people speak, which I don't understand, outside of their timeframe to talk. But there was several on the committee that never said a word. So you really don't know where they stand. There was a couple that were very vocal and everybody just listened. That's what I took out of the meeting. So to say that that the whole city council was against it. I can't say they were, maybe they are, but I can't say that they were based on me sitting and watching the meeting. So I would ask that you at least give them an opportunity. I mean, they can say no, if they say no, we know where we're at.
No, I'm not saying that we should.
Okay, I'm just saying, that's my opinion, and that's what I would like to see.
No, I
But
agree with that.
this is your call,
We should go back to them.
it's up to you guys, but that's just my opinion.
Would you like for us to put a presentation together, bring it back to you for review and approval before we, take it to the city, so you know what we're presenting and?
What kind of,
So
you're gonna present
it would be-
option one, basically?
Yeah, it would be a PowerPoint, they're working on some imagery that would show what it would look like. We obviously will bring the utility piece in there, because I wouldn't wanna go in there without you guys knowing what we're presenting. I almost think it would make some sense for us to put a quick PowerPoint together, bring it back to you to review, you can tell us to tweak, adjust, whatever it is. And then ultimately, at the same time, when we're doing that, we can start to draft this letter, because what's gonna happen is, we get a PowerPoint together, they did ask us to put a letter together, we'll work with you guys to put a letter together that's signed by the chair, because that's the direction they gave us, and just request that we can get on their agenda, which obviously that's gonna be in the next coming month or two.
I think that's a good idea, but in fairness, I think, along with the presentation of option one, you should also prepare a presentation of option two.
Sure.
showing the Skywalk,
Sure. Definitely.
so that they can, you know,
I
see
think
what
there's things you can do with that skywalk too to make it not so unattractive.
Christmas
Outside.
lights? Christmas lights on?
We've got murals going up all over the
I
town.
mean, you look at down the city.
Mural address?
Huh?
No,
You look
He ain't
around-
old enough yet.
You look around the city and they got all kinds of murals of veterans and everything else.
Yep.
Well, I think that would be something that could be, make it a little more appealing.
Sure.
Yeah. There would be ways to. make that look better.
Sounds good, that's what we'll do, we'll put together a PowerPoint that shows both options, we'll, work with Ashley to start drafting a letter, and then, we'll get on their agenda, we'll meet with you guys prior to that.
What time?
Maybe on Monday nights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so probably not then until early November.
So it's a second one. It's the second one, right? August was the
We meet twice a month.
We'll figure it out, we'll get on their agenda. Go ahead for an update, then.
How long would it take to get this PowerPoint together? Just look at him.
So, they have some imagery already done for the south option, we don't have the Skywalk yet, so I don't know what you guys think time-wise, 2 weeks or?
Well, it was it the first week of, first Monday, and second, and third Monday, first and third?
If this is the first, I won't be able to do that one, so we're gonna have to look to the third.
We're talking November then, right?
November, which is hunting week.
Yeah,
So, what, the sixth?
yeah, the sixth, I'm actually out of state that week. Well, but let us confirm when the
Yeah.
city meeting is.
Okay.
That's why I was asking, because I know hunting season's in there.
Yeah.
So what if we did this, and we could be okay if we worked on some dates here to see what we could potentially get, with them, and then we get a date with you through Ashley, once we get some of those timelines worked out, does that work?
Yes.
She can hunt us.
She knows how to get ahold of you.
Oh, I just do have one question. I talked to the sergeant, whatever it was there.
Yep.
About the old jail, and she said they're basically gonna use that for storage in the bigger areas, put some offices in.
So what they did, cause they're going into a renovation phase, so, the second floor of their courthouse is essentially empty now, they're moving them out. So we're bidding out a renovation of that balance of the campus. And the first floor, which is the sheriff's office, is actually gonna become land management. And then the upper floor is the jail on the second floor, kind of appears, and it is all gonna become storage. They were really needing some storage space in there, so. Just lock it up, nobody can get to it.
It's twice a month, the second and the fourth.
One second.
see what we can get on the agenda and then.
Yeah. I suppose sooner the better, you know?
Cool.
We can do that. Be one step closer. Anyone have any announcements? When should we meet?
I think if we can figure out what the city, date would be, and then, you know, obviously a week before, that would be nice, so. It could end up being.
You can meet with us.
Correct. I would prefer if we could do it the 27th, and then meet with you guys that week of the 13th, is kind of what I would lean towards. Yeah.
So, what are you looking at? Fifteenth Wednesday or not?
Can't on the Wednesday, but the 16th.
I'm available on the 16th as well, if we want to tentatively set that.
We go 2 days.
16.
Well, it could, it has to have been, right? We should
What are
have.
the odds, yeah, that we can accept? Okay.
We have 5 days.
Who's
One
that
half.
budget hearing? Who's that budget?
14.
We have another alternate also, right?
We shouldn't, I mean,
Right.
I'm not sure.
but you could tentatively set it
Can
for
we
the
set it for the 16th then? Okay.
6 a.m.?
Okay.
No.
I'll be reading for
You're the only
breakfast.
one.
And do your buying.
There you go.
So, what, 2 again, or what?
If we could do morning, like get kind of back on morning, would that would work for you?
On the 15th? 16th? That would be better, right?
Well, okay, so we have animal control
You could have control at 8:30.
at 8:30, so 10:30, is that what?
Okay.
Yeah.
14, 16.
Ten thirty?
Across screwed it up. $20,000 is damn right.
The other option. That being said, then I will entertain a motion.
So we moved it next week, so that we can do this enforcement today.
Oh, what is the? What is emergency services?
Next Wednesday.
Was that, oh, the 18th?
Yeah.
At 8?
30. No, 8. I can't do that.
At 18th at 8?
Yeah,
Actually, not
no, it got moved back one week.
hang on.
It got moved from 11 to 18.
Yeah,
Right.
I was in November.
And I already accepted.
So, that's a different. The 16th is what you're talking about for
November,
November.
ad hoc.
Yeah.
So first. All right, I'm gonna entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 2:59.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate you spending the day with us.
Same.